All right, View from the Pew Sports Show. We're breaking this up into segments. Instead of listening for an hour about everything, we've got a couple shorter segments about your favorite teams. I'm Chris, got Mike with me. Mike, looking at the Cleveland Guardians, they're still kind of progressing through the season. They're contending. They've looked good some days, maybe not as good other days. What do you think about the last week? They kind of ran into a couple really tough pitchers, I would say.
Yeah. You know, the thing, though, you look at the AL Central has suddenly become one of the best divisions in baseball. I think I saw the other day, I don't know if it's still that way today, but if the playoffs started today, I think 3 or 4 of their teams were holding playoff positions, you know, in the same division. So, and like I said before, that's a young, talented division outside of the White Sox. And that's a division that's going to be around and a factor for a long time to come. But yeah, getting back to the Guardians in the last week, you know, that's kind of what they've done. They go on like a little streak and they win some, and then they go on a little streak and they lose some. So, you know, I think that, you know, the Tigers are, my goodness, they're doing a great job. I think that's the team that's going to probably win that division. That's the team everybody's chasing. And I think it'll probably continue that way this year, Chris.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And again, let's look at some of these games from over the weekend. Tariq Sandell, and remember, he's the ace for the Tigers. Guardians got to him last year, but remember, they were in a game 5 last year in the playoffs. Leighton Thomas had a big home run. Am I getting the name right? Okay. They got, well, let's put it this way. They got to Tariq Sandell. They beat the Tigers. They won. Sandell came back this year. First time he faced the Guardians, probably had the best game of his career. I think it was like a 2-hit shutout, 13 strikeouts. And again, in 2025, we're not pitching that many complete games anymore. And Sandell played really well. Dodgers had a pitcher do really well against the Guardians.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking 2 games, 162 game season. I don't want to get overwhelmed, but I don't know. For the Guardians to get to where we want them to get, they're going to have to get past these guys. You think they have the pitching to get past some of these studs they're going up against?
Well, that remains to be seen yet, Chris. But, you know, tradition says, you know, they've really done a good job with pitching, so I think their pitching, when it's all said and done, will be pretty consistent again this year. I wish they had a few more sticks. That's been a problem for quite a few years. You know, I think they kind of live and die by the home run a lot of times, do the Guardians. So, but, you know, I like I said, it's a good division. I think they have a chance to be a playoff team. I mean, they're holding a playoff position now. So, you know, now are they going to win the division? I'm not so sure about that this year, but I think they can be a playoff team. You know, and again, I think they've done a good job with the budget constraints that they have to deal with. I think their front office does a pretty good job, too.
Well, and the other guy I was looking for the name of, Yoshimoto Yakamoto. He came to Dodgers last year. He was a, kind of one of those guys the Dodgers won a bidding war for out of Japan. Dodgers obviously have Shohei Ohtani, so that kind of helped Yakamoto decide to go to the Dodgers. And also, obviously, the Dodgers have a humongous salary. They could pay out, too.
How would you like to be the GM of the Dodgers and have endless money? It's like, man, that's a pretty easy job.
Well, and that's the thing. And, we've talked about this for years. I mean, obviously, the Guardians aren't where they're at. So where do they get these guys? They make moves, trades. They're not always making them for the highest paid guys, but could they do that this year? I've always talked to you about, hey, let's look at these minor league guys. And, we've heard of Bassana, the number 1 pick they had the year before. But I found the article just of kind of a update of some of these top guys. I want to mention a couple of them to you. CJ K-Foops, he was with Akron. He got promoted to Columbus. The guy hit 364 for Akron, 329 for Columbus. They're saying, look, this guy's looking pretty good. Do you know much about him? Do you think he's a guy that could maybe contribute to Cleveland down the road?
Well, I think you're right. I think that is a guy that can contribute down the road. And that's what they need. They need an influx of some of those guys, especially guys that can hit. We'll see how that goes. I think the pitching will be fine, like I said, once said and done. But, they got it. Now, hopefully, some of these guys they've drafted in the last couple of years are going to be with the big club sooner than later.
Well, and I kind of wondered, too. Again, they got Lincoln Thomas who helped out at the trade deadline last year. But
right.
Could a guy, and I know you can't just bring guys up and hope they're going to be humongous producers, but could a CJ Kayfus be a bat that could bring up later in the year where they're not going to trade for a bunch of high-paid guys? Could maybe he be a guy that could help if they need a bat?
Yeah, I would think so. I definitely would think so. Especially late in the year, if they're in a pennant race late and they've still got a shot at the Tigers, absolutely.
Recently, Travis Bassana had an internal oblique strain. So he's out for 8 to 10 weeks. He started to look better, but you're not going to see him for a little while this year, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, it's going to be an interesting summer. Like I said, with that division, and you got to bring it every day in that division now. It's not like, a few years ago, it's like it was probably the worst division of baseball. Now it's one of the best.
Another young guy is looking good in Columbus is Parker Messick. I don't know if you know much about him. I'm looking at this article. He's 3-1, below 3 ERA. Kind of interesting to see where he's at. I believe he's 24. I'm not sure. But, he's looking pretty good.
The Guardians, I tell you what, I never worry about their pitching. They're the people, they're scouts throughout the organization. They know how to spot good pitching. They've had good pitching for a long time. So I always feel good about that. Like I said, I wish they could pick up a few more sticks along the way.
You remember the I'm going to say Cavs for a second. The Guardians made a couple trades. They ended up, they got Spencer Horwitz, and they almost immediately traded the Pirates. And we were kind of wondering, what's going on here. Well, one of the guys that got in that trade, Josh Hartle, has done really well for the Lake County Captains. So there's some good news to be had there. Again, Lake County, we're not quite sure where he's going to be at, but hey, there's some progress being made. This is just the update of what happened last year.
Yeah, without question. I think their front office, like I said, given the financial constraints they have to deal with, they've done a great job. Great job.
What do you think the next step is for them to contend? What would you do next if you're the front office?
I think that they're in that tier where they're in a tier below. I think the very top teams. But I think and again, it goes down to you can have a great look at the Cavaliers in basketball. You can have a great regular. It's the team that's playing well toward the end of the regular season. Look at how many teams, wild card teams, have won the World Series. I think in the last 10 or 15 years, I think at least 2 wild card teams. So if you get hot at the right time, you got a chance. So I think staying healthy, if they've had to deal with some injuries already, staying healthy, improving slowly, improving that offense, and hope you can keep that pitching intact and healthy for the rest of the year. I think they have a chance to be right there.
Very good. Well, we'll see what happens. And again, thanks for checking us out. We're trying to give you a couple different segments. I know for a lot of fans, they say, hey, I'd rather hear more about the Buckeyes or the Guardians or whatever the thing might be. Now you can kind of pick and choose from which team you want to follow. We're going to try it this week and see if it works or not. Either way, give us a like and subscribe. Obviously, if you followed us for any amount of time, we have sports, we have some pop culture talk, some news talk, a little bit of everything for whatever you're interested in. So give us a like and subscribe, and keep giving us feedback. We always love to hear it. For Mike, this is Chris. Thanks for checking us out. Have a great day, everybody.